Hale Media Group presents Go Blue Hoops, where Michigan basketball's past, present, and future all come together in one show. Hosted by former Wolverine great, 10-year NBA veteran, and longtime ESPN and NBC college basketball analyst Tim McCormick. Each episode goes beyond the box scores, from championship memories and recruiting stories to sharp breakdowns of the season ahead. Insight, legacy. Michigan basketball. This is Go Blue Hoops.
Hello and welcome to everybody to a special edition of the Go Blue Hoops podcast at Hale Media Group. And you're probably asking, why is this special? Well, first of all, Michigan's 16-1 and they've started their second winning streak of the season. Got a lot to talk about. I'm going to break down Washington, Oregon, and Indiana. I also am so excited about our Michigan Man podcast with the great Zack Novak. And then also, you may be curious, what is the NBA thinking about Michigan's elite front line in terms of draft status? Last year, we had Danny Wolf and Vlad Goldin go to the NBA. Is it possible we'll have three more this year? I'm going to tell you a little bit about what ESPN thinks about the draft prospects of Michigan's big guys. All right. So I'm really excited to talk about this Michigan basketball team that I like so much. And here's what I like the most. You know, they showed potential in the non-conference as a dominant force. They experienced what it's like to be the best college basketball team on the planet. They felt it, they experienced it, and I think they know how they have to get back to that level by the end of the NCAA tournament. Also, in these conference games, they're struggling a little bit, and they're learning how to navigate the waters, how to go into a hostile environment, how to have different guys step up and help the team when they need it. And especially on the West Coast trip, going to Washington, going to Oregon, both of them, they had struggles, but they still won both games by 10-plus points. First of all, with Oregon, and I'm going to keep this brief because it seems like Washington and Oregon were kind of the same game. Specifically with Oregon, the most dangerous team is the squad that's missing their top two players. Nate Biddle and Jackson Shelstad are out, and it's so easy, especially on the road, to sit back and take a breath and say, we've got this. Those guys are not playing. The problem is that you have really good support players, guys that were top 50 recruits sitting on the bench, waiting for their chance. All of their family and friends are watching back home. Record-wise, you're not going to be impressed with them, but they're well coached. And at this point, nobody is going to feel sorry for anybody that has injured players. That's just the nature of the game. But here's a couple of things that impressed me. Michigan's two big guys, Yaxel Lendeborg, 1 for 6, okay? Merez Johnson had more fouls than he had rebounds. So those guys were shut down a little bit. They didn't play well for whatever reason. But others stepped up, and that's the sign of a championship caliber team. How good was Nimari Burnett? I think partially he got the podcast bump. He had good vibes from being our Michigan Man interview last week, and he played like a star. I like the fact that he talked about his shooting form on our podcast, and then he went out and just delivered some great threes at crucial times. Also, Elliot Cadeau bounced back really big. After a scoreless game against Washington, he was the high scorer for Michigan, probably the best player on the court. And a lot of times we don't give enough credit to the support guys, but Will Cheddar was outstanding off the bench. He made all the hustle plays. He scored well. That's what we expect from Will Cheddar. Also, a quick update on some of the key numbers that we're following this year that show you just how good this Michigan team is. Number 1 in Big Ten scoring. Number 1 in field goal percentage in the Big Ten games. Number 1 in rebound margin. Number 2 in assists. A little bit of slippage there. Now they're behind Purdue. Number 1 in block shots. Across the board, basketball brilliance. Now, the one thing that Michigan's going to have to sharpen up a little bit, Their defensive rebounding is slipping a bit, and then also making free throws. Another big number that allows Dusty May to sleep well at night is within the game against Washington and Oregon. Michigan struggled at times in the first half, but as soon as they figured out their opponents, second half in both games, they shot 60% from the field. Also, Michigan's top 9 players in the rotation, they have a 9-man rotation this year. All 9 players have played 17 games except for LJ Kaysen. He's played 16. That means that your core guys have been almost 100% healthy. So unique. Michigan's got to keep that up. All right. I also wanted to take a minute and talk about draft coverage, as I mentioned earlier. We loved Danny Wolf and Vlad Goldin last year. Let's go back and remember draft day. Danny Wolf was drafted number 27 to Brooklyn. How's he doing? Pretty darn good. Last night he had his career-high 14 points. He scored in double figures 4 of his last 6 games. Danny Wolf is really emerging as a key player on a young and emerging team. Remember who his assistant coach is? Juwan Howard. How's Vlad Goldin doing? He went undrafted to Miami, and what that means is you're probably going to spend a lot of time in the G League. He has only played 1 minute of NBA action. He's suited up for a whole number of games, but not really getting his chance at this point. They've got other big guys in front of him, but he is an NBA player. Another observation I wanted to make before we introduce our Michigan man interview with Zack Novak. I get a chance to broadcast a lot of college basketball games, and I get a different perspective talking to coaches about their opponents and matchups and so on. On Thursday, I had Oakland University, coached by Greg Kampe, playing at Milwaukee on ESPNU. And I asked Greg, I said, you played Michigan first game of the year on November 3rd. What were your thoughts on Michigan? What did you take away? Are there any flaws? Did you see anything that they could do better? And he said, they beat us by 43 points. And in my 42 years of coaching, it was the best basketball team that I have ever coached against. And remember, this is a guy that plays the best schedules every year. He plays Kentucky and Kansas and North Carolina, and he plays all these bye games. He's played great competition. I thought that was pretty darn impressive. Also on Saturday, I broadcast St. Bonaventure at LaSalle, and their coach is Darris Nichols. He played for Bobby Huggins and John Beilein at West Virginia. Really good coach with a great perspective because he played Michigan right before Christmas, and they lost by 52 points. I asked Darris, I said, what were your thoughts on Michigan? He said, well, it was kind of interesting because after the game, I got a phone call from Dusty May. And I'm thinking, why is he calling me? He just beat me by 52. Well, he said that Dusty asked a really interesting question. He said, Darris, you played against our team. I'm just curious, what weaknesses, what areas that you could try to exploit jumped out at you? And Coach Nichols said, well, you beat us so badly that there was nothing on the court that didn't impress me. However, as I look at your team, I think they're quiet. The communication can be so much better. Nichols said, my LaSalle team was not talented enough or good enough to be able to exploit those weaknesses, but it's something you should address because when you play Michigan State, Illinois, Purdue, teams like that, if you're not talking and communicating, you can be completely exploited.
Hey, Michigan fans, before we continue with the video, please do us a favor and like, share, and subscribe to our channel. It helps our channel grow and allows us to keep bringing you great content for free. So don't forget, like, share, and subscribe. Now, back to the video.
The Go Blue Hoops podcast is thrilled to welcome a great Michigan man, the great Zack Novak, who started 122 games at power forward for Michigan and some small forward too, a three-time captain. Zack, welcome to episode number 12. Thanks so much, and I'm really looking forward to catching up with you.
Yeah, Tim, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, actually, I've always had a lot of respect for you, and I've followed your career extra close because I think that we had some connection from the standpoint that we both played directly after kind of some mediocre teams, and by being leaders, by being recruiters, by kind of setting the culture, we had championships right after us. So I think that we have a lot in common from that standpoint. What are you doing today professionally? Where are you living?
Yeah, I actually live about 10 minutes north of Northwestern now in a town called Winnetka. So it's the Home Alone town for those who've seen the movie. My kids actually go to preschool right across the street from the house, which is pretty cool. I work for a company called Quantix. We do global logistics for chemical companies. So pretty much everything that's made in your house of either base liquid chemicals or plastics is probably flown through our network at one point or another.
Well, I'm sure you're killing it. So the Michigan basketball team this year, have you had a chance to really follow them? What are your thoughts on the team? And also, do you have a relationship with Coach May? I know you guys are both Indiana guys.
Yeah, no, I've been following quite a bit this year. I think last year started to really get back into it, and then this year I think I've missed maybe one or two games. So I've been watching pretty closely. But I'm sure we'll get into more of the details. But just generally speaking, we couldn't be happier with where the program's at right now and the team that we have. You know, it's not just that they're winning, but this is a group of guys that's really easy to root for. Love the way they play, love the way they carry each other. And then Coach May, I mean, there's not really much to say. I mean, he's been awesome, absolute home run hire. Um, when he got the job, we're coming off of as challenging of a year or two period we'd had in a while. And I can just tell you just the way that he approached us as alumni. I remember he held a few quarterly calls with us, just give us updates on how things were going. Gave us his phone number, was very communicative, and was wide open about some of the challenges, especially around NIL and the way that the world was moving that he was having, and just open it up to us if we could support. Great, but really just kept us in the loop with what was going on, and he's just been awesome. And I think what he's done so far, look, we knew we had a great hire. I don't think anybody expected that it was reasonable for anybody to come in and make this type of impact that quickly, but he's been awesome.
Being from the state of Indiana, the Hoosiers kind of approach Bobby Knight. You probably had a barn with a rim nailed to it. When you grew up, did you want to play at Indiana? And what's it like being the high school kid that dreams about playing basketball in the state of Indiana?
Yes. So I grew up, I was a huge Coach Knight fan. I think it started with my parents, were huge Hoosier fans. I used to go to his camps when I was in like second, third grade. So I remember going there with guys like AJ Guyton. That's a name for throwback, when they were on the team. And so, huge fan, watched the teams, watched the Final Four run with Mike Davis right when he came in after Coach Knight, and just really grew up. If you're in Indiana, you want to play basketball at Indiana. Like that is what it is. My recruitment story, I mean, I was not recruited at all. So I started my first day of my senior year of high school with 0 offers to play anywhere, let alone go to Michigan or Indiana. And, I was lucky enough that I had a good senior year and some offers came along. And, the timing of it was really interesting at the end, though. So Coach Beeline, I get a call from him while I'm in class with my coach in a study hall. He says, it doesn't matter. Like, take the call. This is the Michigan coach. So I'm on the phone with Coach Beeline for the first time in front of 30 high school kids. And the recruitment was pretty quick. I mean, it was like 2 months. He came to a practice. You would have thought the town shut down. Everybody's in the gym watching basketball practice. Coach Beeline's there. Came to a game. He ends up giving me an offer. But what happened was Indiana was right in between Sampson and Crane. So in like the week where it really got serious with Coach B, Sampson was gone. They had no coach. And I think they hired Crean. It might have been like days after I committed to Michigan. And if you recall at the time, he came in, he had to clean house. He probably had, I think, 7 or 8 scholarship guys even left. So he used to tell me in the handshake lines like 3 days, because if he would have got hired 3 days before, at that point in Indiana, I was by far the best player left because everyone committed. It's not because I was the best player. But he used to say 3 days and you would have been a Hoosier. And at that time, I definitely would have went to Indiana because it was my dream my whole life. That being said, I'm very happy he did not get hired 3 days before because it was a perfect fit with Coach B in Michigan. I'm a Wolverine for life now. And so it worked out how it was supposed to, but it was just funny how, a couple days here or there and the story could have been totally different.
In 1984, I was an alternate on the U.S. Olympic team, and so I spent the whole summer playing for Bobby Knight. Played some all-star games. It was just a thrill. Do you have a good Bobby Knight story, or what was he like when you were a little kid? Did you meet him? What was that?
I did meet him. So I've got two funny Bobby Knight stories. So my parents got divorced when I was young. The pictures of the three of us are like pretty much far and few between to come by. My parents did not like each other. One of the pictures I have is the three of us with Bobby Knight when I went to the camp. And I was like, only Bobby Knight could get my parents to come together and take a picture. So that's one of my favorite ones now. And it was pretty cool to look back on that. But I remember at his camp. So I was, like I said, I was 3rd, 4th grade maybe. And it was 2 years in a row. It was one before he had all of the issues with the player and all that. And then the year after, you didn't see him at the camp at all. It wasn't like Coach Beeline where he was drawing up plays for the kids or whatever, like heavily involved. Coach Knight would come in off the golf course when it was time to do his speech for the camp. And I remember he told the story about the sacrifice if you want to be a ball player. And so you've got, I don't know, 1,000 kids and kind of listening to every single word. Basically, the story went, hey, you're going to be walking down the street someday and you're going to see a nice young woman walking down the street, and you take a good look and keep walking, because if you want to be a ball player, she's going to bring you down. And that was his message to me when I was in 3rd grade. And I don't think I even started having girlfriends until like much later after all my friends, because Coach Bob Knight said that if I had one, I wasn't going to be a good basketball player.
Lucky he didn't say, "Don't ever get married." You'd be a single guy still. If Bobby Knight
Yeah. Exactly. But it was funny. And I remember vividly exactly where I was sitting. It just like when I was younger, how much I held on to those words. It's pretty funny in hindsight.
So John Beeline recruits you. You come in as a freshman and had a major impact. What do you remember about that freshman year? I think you guys actually beat number 4 Duke, which was
Yeah.
pretty awe-inspiring. But what do you remember, and what was John Beeline like as a coach?
Yeah. So it was interesting because I came in, and it was kind of like 2 sides of the coin. On one side, the way I was recruited, I didn't know if I was ever going to play a minute at Michigan. I was just kind of happy to be there. Um, on the other side, I had been the best player on every team I'd played on forever, and I'd always played every game. And so at the beginning, I kind of struggled a bit. Came off the bench for the first 12 games, so the non-conference season. And I remember we went to the Garden, played UCLA and Duke back to back. So UCLA was 4th. We beat them, and then we lost to Duke. And then we turned around and we played Duke 2 weeks later at home. I wasn't playing at all in the Garden. I remember I'm talking to Pat Beeline just saying, I'm really struggling with not playing. I'm not used to sitting on the bench. Maybe I'm not cut out to play here. And he's like, dude, chill out. You're a freshman. Just give it some time. Like it'll happen. And then we have that Duke game at home, and I got hot. I think I hit 4 threes in the game. I think I hit a couple big ones in the second half. We ended up winning the game. And then I remember a conversation with Pat after that. He kind of gave me a heads up. He's like, hey, my dad's thinking of starting you at the 4 against Wisconsin. And I laughed at him. I was like, what are you talking about playing the 4? I'm 6'3" and 215 pounds. How am I going to play the 4 in the Big Ten? And oddly enough, is Joe Krabanoff, who's the assistant coach at Wisconsin now, I believe. he's starting 4, and this guy is just like, he's as Wisconsin as they come, just a massive, human being. And coach like, no, we're going to go for it. I think I can draw up some plays. Like, they have to guard you too, is what he kept saying to me. They got to guard you too. Came out. I think I had my career high against Wisconsin until my senior year. I had 20 points and didn't look back. I think I started every other game throughout the rest of my career, and most of those at the 4, which is still crazy to me to think that I played power forward in the Big Ten for so long. But I think to your question around Coach B and what he was like, I think from a creativity and just really, you hear the term first principles a lot thrown around these days. Like, he really approached basketballs from a first principles approach. And I don't see that in the game that I watch anymore. Now it's just get athletes in space, run a few pick and rolls, and see if you can get a good shot. And I mean, he really had to scheme his way into getting guys like me and Stu and get us open and get us shots. We aren't just going to go break guys down. And so I think that, the way that he was able to do that and really leverage guys' strengths and think creatively, especially on the offensive end of the floor, was, you always felt like you were in a better position going into a game than your opponent on offense every single time.
Zach, you mentioned that you started every game the rest of your career, 122 starts. I'm really impressed with that. But the number that jumps out at me is you were a captain 3 times. That's got to be a record, right? I mean, it can't be more than that. But what leadership principles did you learn about being a captain?
Michigan, they invest in every aspect of you when you're a student athlete at the university. And so I was lucky. We had a leadership coach. There's a guy named Mike Irwin. He was in the Army and he was getting his doctorate in leadership at Michigan. Awesome guy. And so I remember my sophomore year, got elected as captain and got put in touch with Mike, and he coached me through different things to think about in terms of being a leader. And there's a guy who's studying, and he's like, look, you can hone leaders if people have it within them. You can't make them if they don't have it in them. So he's like, you've got, there's some things that I did naturally, but I didn't have a way to think about it. I didn't have a vernacular for leadership, basically. And so he gave me that, and he taught me different tactics and different things to do. And some of the biggest things that I think stood out for me is really taking the time to understand who you're dealing with and know you have to lead each person differently. Not everybody is going to be led the same. And so you have to understand your teammates and even your coaches and everyone in the program. Like, when you're the captain of the team, it goes both ways. And so you have to understand how people tick and what you need to do to get the most out of them. Then I think the other big one, by the way, I still call him like in my professional life now. So this guy's like a lifelong friend. That leadership can be pretty lonely too, especially when you're in college and you're all boys and you all want to be friends all the time. When you want to win, like, sometimes you can't be everybody's friend. And, I know there's guys like I'm sure I drove guys nuts sometimes, but I think if you asked a lot of them, they'd be like, yeah, but we won a lot and you helped get the most out of me. But that means, like, you have to, when you're 18, 19, I was 19 when I was the captain of the team, you have to be comfortable with guys not liking you for a little bit, which can be tough to do. And, definitely there were some moments where it wasn't easy, but ultimately we all wanted to win and everybody knew we had the best out for each other. And so it worked out.
Leadership is lonely. I like that. You went to Michigan with Stu Douglass, and when I think back to when you were recruited, he was probably a similar kind of recruit. I read an article in which the writer said that, oh, great, John Beilein is recruiting the YMCA to try to fill out his roster. Did that kind of commentary fuel you guys at all? And what was your relationship like with Stu?
Yeah, so Stu and I knew of each other. We played in the same AAU program, but we had never played together. So we didn't have too much of a relationship coming in beforehand, and he committed long before I did. Like I said, I was really, really late. Um, and look, at the time, I think He probably had a little bit higher view of kind of what he was going to come in and do at Michigan, I think, than I did. Like, I was really unsure if I was going to be able to play or not. I think, he felt more like he belongs. He committed on like a regular timeline and all those things. Like, he wasn't a last minute thing. But our relationship, it was pretty much great from day one. Once we realized, especially, we weren't going to be playing like the exact same position, and there was a lot of opportunity to go around, and ultimately coach had a lot of faith in both of us. I think we kind of just like banded together, and thought it was kind of funny when people would mix up, like we still get called the wrong names if we go to Ann Arbor. Like we'll both be here this weekend for Trey's thing. Won't be shocked if I'm called Stu, he's called Zach. It happens almost every time. So, I mean, I think we've just kind of leaned into it that we're linked together, I think, forever in Michigan basketball, one way or another. And at this point, we've just become lifelong friends. There's a couple guys I'm really close with, but I mean, him and I will always have kind of a unique friendship and relationship just because of the nature of how we came in. And look, I think those comments, did we hear them? Yeah, for sure. And did it drive us? Absolutely. And, I think we both kind of took pride at the end of it. When we looked back at our 4 years, look, I think there was just similar to what I just said about Coach May in his first 2 years. I don't think anybody in the Michigan fan base, if you would have told them when we committed, all right, 4 years later, here's what the resume is going to look like, not a single person would have believed you. And so I think we both took a lot of pride in that at the end, that, we left it in a better spot. And then obviously it was set up pretty well when we left.
So exciting about Trey Burke. You
Yeah.
played with him for 1 year, but you also probably did a lot of recruiting to get him to come to Ann Arbor. What made Trey Burke so special? And do you have any good stories you can share about him?
Yeah. Well, it's funny, for all the guys that we recruited and put a ton of effort into recruiting, he was probably the easiest one. He had committed to Penn State, and coach felt we needed another point guard. We had gone to Europe the summer before. I think I might have been our leading scorer when we went to Europe, that's bad. So I think he was a little worried about what was going to happen. So he's like, we need a backup point guard, and so he recruited Trey. And I remember I was sitting in class, and I got a text, "Hey, can you come to Noodles and Company? We got a recruit in." So the
That was the
recruiting
hot
that
spot, Noodles and Company.
yeah, we didn't take him to Chop House or Real Seafood Company. Met for lunch at Noodles and Company. And, he was a pretty quiet kid on the visit. And I remember he committed. And, for all the commits that we had over the years, which for better or for worse felt like was always on sales mode with recruiting, just like you were back in the day when trying to build it up, right? You got to get the right guys in. His was like, it was easy. He was kind of committed, and no one really knew what to think. Then he came onto campus, and we went to his first open gym. And so we were at the CCRB. This was when Chrysler was getting renovated. And we used to play to 7 baskets, and it was just no 2s or 3s. 7 baskets wins. 6'6", he comes down the first game. He stops behind a ball screen, like 3 feet behind. Shots that Beeline's been trying to like get us all to be able to make for 4 years, that I'm like just now starting to be able to make at that point. He shoots it. He nails it. So I call him over. I'm like, "Hey, Trey, that's a good shot. I'm glad you made it and we won. But like, hey, we're going to be at Indiana, at Purdue, at Michigan State. The game's on the line. We got to get a better shot than that." "See, I got you. I got you." All right. So he comes down the next play. 6'6" again, cross spin move, floater in the lane, bucket. Again, just stuff that like Val and Beeline have been trying to get our guys to be able to do this stuff for 4 years. And like, we're kind of doing it, but like not like this. He hits it. I don't say a word. We win the game. Third game, come down again. It's 6'6". He stops behind the ball screen, even further behind, nails it. I call him over, and you could tell he's kind of like a puppy dog. He's like, I know. And I was like, no, you don't know. Forget everything I said. When we get to the end of the game, shoot it. Like, you got it. Shoot it. And, it was just, you could tell like the second he stepped on campus that we stole one. I mean, he was the best player by far. And then you just saw like when you played with him, the thing that like stuck out to me the most is just how coachable he was. Great team guy. I never had one issue with him that entire year where I had to like pull him to the side and say, you're out of line, you're off base, we need you to do X, Y, or Z. Like nothing, not once. And he was just so competitive. The level of skill that he had was crazy. That's why he was just awesome to play with. And I mean, he made me look pretty good. He's the reason I would not have a Big Ten championship ring sitting in my office if it wasn't for Trey Burke. Zero chance. So yeah, I love the guy.
It's funny that the shot that you were discouraging him from taking, that was the one that propelled you guys in the NCAA tournament.
It was that I was gone that year, but it was almost
Right.
the exact same shot that he had
Yeah.
against Kansas. Even the same wing, same everything. Yeah, it was crazy.
So Trey leads the team. They're in the Final Four in Atlanta. You were playing pro ball in the Netherlands, which is probably a really interesting story in itself. But somehow, didn't Travis Conlon help you get into the locker room after the game digitally?
So they beat Kansas, and then I think it was Florida next, maybe. They FaceTimed me when they won the Elite Eight game. And I remember that was pretty cool. So like as they were cutting down the nets, I was FaceTimed in. Pretty awesome. And then, when they're in the Final Four, I'm just sitting there. I'm just like, how can I miss this? Like there's just no way. And so at this point, I knew I wasn't going to play another year overseas. I had made the call about midway through the season that I was like one and done, and I was just going to enjoy the year, have a good time, still play, but I was going to go work. So I went to the coach and the GM of the team, and I basically said, "Hey guys, look, we've got two options here. I'm going to the Final Four. So option one is you're cool with it and I'll come back afterwards. Option two is I'm going to go to the Final Four and then I'm just going to go home." And you could tell they were kind of like they'd never had that type of request before. And they said, "Okay, that's fine. Just like whatever you do, just try not to get on TV." And which I was like, all right, I'll try, which of course I failed miserably at that weekend. And so I remember going back and the GM's like, just, dude, he's like, I asked one thing. He's like, we told the league you were sick. And then they see you on TV at the national championship game. Just like, not a good look. But no, there was no way I was missing it. So I flew from the Amsterdam to Atlanta for a 3-day trip there and back. I think I spent half the money I made playing the entire year in Europe to do it, but it was worth it. I wouldn't have missed it.
I was in Atlanta too. It was thrilling. And when I think back to that roster with Hardaway and Karis LeVert and all of the guys, can you share a little bit about the recruiting piece? Because I want to know who you were recruiting and what was your plan? Like, where did you take recruits? What was the commitment like? Because I think it's really interesting. I love the recruiting piece of it too when I played. Where did you take them? What was a recruiting Friday night in the fall like
Yeah.
for a recruit?
It was kind of different by the guy you were recruiting. Um,
Like Mitch
so there wasn't
McGary is probably different than Tim Hardaway Jr., right?
Yeah, Mitch was a little different. Actually, those two guys are probably more similar than you'd think. They're just, uh, look, so I think that there was always a couple pieces of it. When just generally speaking, when you're recruiting, one, you want them to feel the culture around the program, feeling like, that it's a welcoming culture. They're going to come in, be able to be at their best. We're going to help them get better. And really just like, we're not jerks. So I think that was a big one. Two, you want them to hear that like the coaching staff supportive, the program supportive, the school supportive. And then the third big one, which I don't think anybody was surprised by, is like you're going to have fun if you come here. And that fun's both on the court with the fans, but also like what's the life like outside of the court. And so for like typical recruiting, you're going to come in and when somebody's on an official visit, if I'm hosting somebody, I get a couple bucks, like $100 to go out and entertain them, which is like laughable in today's NIL world. But we'd go out to Chop House or we go to Real Seafood. You take them to nice dinner, their family's there. And then after that, you go out and you show them what's it like to be a student for a night. And this is actually part of what we had to build up. Like when I got here as a freshman, I mean, the basketball team couldn't even get into Rick's. I mean, Rick's, it's the premier place, right? So Rick's and Skeef's both, like, we have no connections, no nothing. And so, like, I know it sounds like kind of ridiculous, but like we had to go, and I had to go and build a lot of these connections in with the places where we had to go and take guys to show them the school was fun.
You know how wrong that sounds? You have to go develop relationships with the bar owners because you want to help your program. I like it.
But it's a real thing. And by the way, this is not me asking them to give us anything. You know, with Beeline, it was so black and white. I mean, we had to stay so far in like in the rules thing. So we weren't doing anything bad. It was like, literally, I want to take this person where all the students are hanging out, which on a Friday or Saturday night, that's where it's at. And so it was either that, or we developed some relationships with some of the frats so that we could come and take them to parties. And yeah, you'd have a plan ahead of time to make sure that they were getting some love shown their way when they showed up. And so, look, I think that those were all some degree of those things based on the players, kind of like what we were indexing on. And I have closer relationships with some of the guys who played after me than some of the guys I played with. So if you look at like that class, you had Karras, but he was committed to Ohio. And then I think Gross got the Illinois job. And then we brought him in. I mean, he was like 17 years old or something ridiculous. He was more of a quiet kid. There wasn't much there. He just wanted to come. And I think he really meshed with the assistant coaches. So that one was pretty easy.
What about Mitch McGary? You said that he was a fun one.
Well, I played in high school with Mitch. I've known Mitch since we were kids. I knew how good Mitch could be when Mitch was 14 years old, 15 years old. He was the sixth man on our team my senior year of high school. We were number 2 in the state of Indiana. We were really good. So for a freshman to come in and get minutes, you knew how good he was going to be. At that time, he was like 6'6", 6'7". He wasn't what he is, now. And then once he just took off. I mean, he like within one summer goes and like he's the second ranked player in the country. And at that time, he's with Duke. Texas was a big one, and Michigan is trying to come along, but I think is in distant, second or third. And so I knew his family, I knew him, and it was more about just taking an approach with helping him understand like why I thought Michigan was the best place for him, knowing him. I think you have to ask him for sure, but I think, why did he ultimately pick Michigan? We had great coaching. I think he had great relationship with BA and with Coach B, but ultimately I think, we had a lot of trust built up that I think like the kind of the last thing that might have put it over the edge was like, I vouched for it. I was like, I know you, like, this is going to be a great experience for you. And I think it's the best place for you. Where ultimately, somewhere like Duke couldn't do that. And it's funny now is the guy, one of my best friends where I live now, was hosted him on his Duke visit. And so he told me about the Duke visit. He's like, yeah, we thought we had him wrapped up. And then you guys came at the last minute and stole him. And I was like, yeah, we did. My joke was the best thing I ever did for Michigan basketball was get Mitch McGary to commit.
Wow.
And that's probably true.
Yeah. I disagree with that. My favorite thing that you did at Michigan, you might remember, was January 17th of 2012. Michigan 60, Michigan State 59. What do you remember about that game? And I've got to ask you about the matchup. Zack Novak head-to-head against future Hall of Famer Draymond Green.
Yeah, that was the number one game of my 4 years at Michigan. So there was a couple because
Which is the one where you went viral by going crazy, yelling at your team in the huddle. Play harder. I want to hear about that too.
Yeah. So that was my junior year. So we are the situation is we are 1-6 in the Big Ten. We're coming off the year prior. We were ranked 15th in the country coming into the year, and we didn't make the NIT. So it's looking as poorly as it can possibly look for us. But at the same time, we had just played the number one team in the country back-to-back weeks because one of them lost. So we played Ohio State and Kansas. We took Kansas to overtime. I think we lost by a couple points to Ohio State. Really close. So we're right there. Remember a week leading to the game, my only message to the guys, we could literally change this whole thing with one game. That's all we need to think. One game. We win this game at East Lansing. Everyone will forget everything immediately. And so that day, there was a huge snowstorm, and we were going to drive over, which we had never done. And for whatever reason, I was like, yeah, we're just going to drive to the game day of. So we don't show up to the stadium until 1 hour before tip. Normally, we're there way before. So we're probably not even getting out for warmups until, 40 minutes before tip. So I think it was the best thing that ever happened to us. We broke our routine. We didn't have time to think about what was happening. And we just went out and just played. I think they get out to like a 4-0 start. They're about to like just start running it down our throat. I take a charge, come down, and then I think I had a 4-point play or something like right out of the gate. And then it was just like the rim. It was a mile wide. I just couldn't miss, and it was a good feeling to have that happen there after many years of our program not being able to get a win there. And I think what you saw in the timeout, which is funny because you talked about the relationship with Stu. I mean, I'm yelling at Stu in that, by the way, and it wasn't so much yelling at Stu as I wanted everyone to pick up just like how urgent we needed to be and the intensity we need to bring to that game. We had let a ball go out of bounds that I thought we should have grabbed. Like that was basically it. And I was just telling everyone, like, if you got a chance to get a ball, like you kill yourself if trying to get it. It was basically the message I was giving. Props to Colton for throwing the towel over my mouth so the TV didn't pick up exactly what I was saying. But going into that game, Draymond at the time, he's all Big Ten, all American. You know what you're getting with him. They had guys like Delvon Rowe, who was also really, really good. They had a whole stacked team. You got Izzo on the other side. So you're going up against a team that wants to embarrass you. Like when they play us, they want to embarrass us. And for a long time they did. And I think, one of the things that we wanted to do as a program is just say like, not anymore. And I think that game, if you look at it, was really the first time where we were just like, this isn't going to happen anymore. And I mean, if you look from that point forward, for the Beeline era and for Michigan and that rivalry, it really did turn kind of on a dime. And the whole trajectory of the program for the next decade really started that night. And Stu hit a huge shot at the end of the game. And a lot of guys step up that game, and that was a fun one. Walking out of there with the win was pretty sweet.
Was there any trash talk between you and Draymond Green? Because I don't know if you were a trash talker or not, but seeing how fired up you were, maybe you did.
Yeah, I mean, not like him. I mean, he's a world class trash talker. But it was kind of funny. Like Draymond, I think, goes at you if he thinks you're soft and doesn't really respect you so much. Is the guys that he lets have it the most. He never really went at me like that too bad. And it's funny, like because of the nature of that rivalry, Michigan State's different than Ohio State. Ohio State, like I know no Ohio State people, really. Michigan State, you're friends with everybody. Like you're seeing people on each other's campuses and things. Like Draymond was hanging out in Ann Arbor all the time. I would see he would hang out at the apartment like 3 doors down from me. So I knew him, and by no means were we friends, but I mean, we were cordial and I think had a mutual respect. When I look back on Draymond, my senior year, we were both up for this Lowe's Senior Class Award. So we got flown down to the Final Four, New Orleans, and just got to like go to the game and go out at the halftime. I think go on the court. It was pretty cool. And so it was like 12 guys. Rob Hummel was up for the award too. Draymond, and I remember sitting in the back of the stadium and having a conversation with Draymond. He's like, "Hey, what are you going to do next?" And I was like, "I'm going to go play overseas, and I'm going to go get a job." And he's just like, "Well, why are you going to do that?" And I was like, "Well, why wouldn't I do it? What else am I going to do, Draymond?" And he gave me the biggest pump up speech anyone's ever given me in my life. He's like, "No, you need to go for it. Like you need to go to play in the NBA. Like you got a shot. Like you could try it." So he's like, "Worst people made it. You got to do it." And he like pumped me up. In the back of my mind, I'm sitting there and just like, one, like, am I making some huge mistake? Like this is a guy who's supposed to hate me and be my biggest rival ever is now telling me like I should go for it. And a second hand, I'm like, wow, he's delusional. What's going to happen to him? What's he going to do? because he might not even make it in the NBA. I mean, he was a second round draft pick. So, like, no one thought he was going to have the career he had. And then obviously, I mean, he's been awesome with the Warriors and has had a hell of a career. And again, it goes to that mindset I was talking about with Trey, where it's just like this irrational belief in himself, and it worked out pretty well. But I think that the thing as we look back at those years, I mean, we were not beating Michigan State at all coming in. Like, beating them was kind of this, just beating them once was kind of this thing to overcome. Draymond and future Hall of Famer and I, like, head to head as captains, 50-50. We split even. So, like, that's one that's pretty cool and something that we're pretty proud of that we were able to do. And again, just kind of shift the tide.
Zach, this is great. I'm loving these stories. Thank you again. And one thing that people don't realize, you were an academic All-American at a highly academic school. What was the biggest challenge for you to be able to manage your basketball career, but still be a student that are competing against some of the smartest people in your age group? What was that like? What your academic experience, and also what was your hardest class you ever had to take?
I think the interesting thing with one, I don't even know what an academic All-American is, so I don't know what I did. I think Tom Wyrot did a good job to get me that honor. But part of the reason I loved going to Michigan is it is such a great school, and it carries weight for me to be able to say I have a Michigan business degree and also played Michigan basketball. I mean, it does open doors for sure. There's some things it taught me, and there were some things where I think we saw some gaps in the support the university had that we addressed, and like Michigan always does, like, was fully supportive in addressing those gaps, which is pretty cool. But what ended up happening with me is, you have to pick and choose your spots pretty quickly, because there was classes I would miss the first 6 lectures or whatever. And, like, that's fine to a point, but the classes I was taking for the right reasons, the athletic department didn't have tutors standing around for the types of classes I was in, just because, like, we didn't really have a lot of guys taking those classes for a long time.
Like, what's an example?
Like 300, 400 level macro econ class, corporate finance, like an entrepreneurial studies class. So it was just different classes that weren't the typical classes. So I think that was one. And then two, at that time, I think there was good resource to try to, like, help people find interviews. And, like, once you knew what you wanted to do, they could help you find jobs and opportunities for that. But there wasn't really a framework in place to help you figure out, like, what that should be. How do you know what you want to do? And so I partnered up with a teacher of mine, Entrepreneurial Studies 395. Len Middleton was a favorite class I took. You actually, like, built a business plan, built a business. And I remember I got to work on a real startup this girl had, the Vintage Twin. It's like this huge vintage store in New York now, still going. It's, like, pretty awesome. And I went to Len after the class. I was like, hey, look, I want to work with you and take an independent study to put together a playbook to transition out of sports into business. This is great. So we spent the whole semester, built this playbook out, figured out, what are the right steps to take. And it was basically, hey, go play overseas, come back, go into consulting. You're going to get to see a lot of different businesses, work on a lot of different problems, and then go into technology and startups, because then building a business gives you exposure versus going to some, big organization. Long story short, the other guys heard that I was taking that, and we ended up turning that into a full class that actually was like a real thing that guys could register for. And it got more skewed towards the athletes who had a professional career ahead of them, but to be able to then go and figure out what are the different things they need to do to start thinking about life after sports, how to manage their money, how to do all these things, the horror stories you just hear about all these athletes. So we put together a class on that. It was pretty cool. It was like on CBS Morning News, and became a real thing. So that was pretty cool. And again, just goes to speak to Michigan. Like, I went to one person in Michigan. I was like, I have an idea and a need, and, like, the resources that then just got, like, thrown behind it to make it not only just, like, a thing that met my need, but, like, got blown out into this thing that's now helped, tons of athletes. It's pretty cool.
You should be getting some royalties from that.
I'll take some royalties from other things first. Would be nice.
Almost finished here. You played professionally in the Netherlands. What was that experience like? I mean, sellout crowds at the Kohl Center and Assembly Hall and Breslin, and all of a sudden there's probably 50 people in the crowd. What was the Netherlands like
Yeah.
as a pro basketball experience?
It was a wake up call. It was a big time wake up call. And there were some things that were really good about it. And I think there were some things that were, yeah, growth for me. You go from a place like Michigan where it's first class every step of the way. I mean, we're getting steaks delivered to us on the bus after a game, like top notch, to I'm showing up in the Netherlands, getting picked up in a white sprinter van from a guy named Yap, like, uh, who's I think smoking a cigarette outside. Like it was a different thing. And you know the part about it that was really interesting. The coach, he was a Beeline fan big time. So like you try to replicate everything from Coach Beeline's offense and all that. And so it was difficult for me because I went from having the guy who was the master of this to having the guy who knew a lot about it. Um, but I think, I definitely like learned a lot about myself because I got really frustrated with him when he wasn't like at the level of John Beeline, which like in hindsight was ridiculous. Like I should have given him a lot more leeway than I did. And instead, it was the first coach in my life I ever butted heads with. What was most surprising to me was similar to going into Michigan. I never thought I was going to have a chance to play overseas. It kind of came up last minute. I'm thinking, okay, I'll go there and maybe I'll play half the game and do all right. Playing the whole game, I'm like second in the league in scoring, like going back to how I was playing in high school. So like the path was there to keep playing. And the best thing about it, it was fun to get one more season where like I got to go and like shoot more than I did. Like that was fun. We had a pretty good team. And the most important thing was like I made a ton of friends there that are still lifelong friends. I lived in a house with 8 guys above a grocery store. Like it was basically like a frat house in there. It was fun, like a study abroad program almost, but I didn't have to go to class. I was just actually back there for work about 3 months ago and still meeting up with them and still talk to them all the time. And so I think that's really what it's about is like people along the way that you meet and that you keep in touch with and develop relationships with that are pretty cool. And even still follow the team a little bit. The Lon State of Hammers, and one of the guys that I actually played with all the way back, then has just now come back to finish his career, Dutch guy, and he's playing there. But 1 year, it was enough for me.
Yeah, I want to close today, Zach, with some fast break questions, short questions, quick answers. So, on the road, which was your favorite road game? Was it Assembly Hall in Indiana or Breslin and Michigan State?
Indiana. I remember at Indiana, my jersey was vibrating. It was so loud. It's a crazy place to play.
What was the most points you ever scored at any level?
39.
Where was that, high school?
I was actually in the Netherlands.
Okay. Why did you pick 0?
32 was taken. That was my high school number, and 3 was taken. That was my high school baseball number. And so I just figured 0 would be cool. There wasn't much more of a story to it than that.
Favorite pregame meal?
I usually would keep it pretty light. Like I'd do some pasta and maybe like a light protein chicken or something. But I didn't eat too much before the games.
Yeah. What is your shoe size?
13.
Last time you played basketball was when?
Before COVID. It's probably been 6, 7 years.
If you weren't going to go to Michigan, it sounds like Indiana wasn't a choice at that point. Where would you have gone?
My next best offer was probably Colorado State or St. Louis, but I think if it wasn't Michigan, I was probably just going to hold on and keep seeing where I could go.
Favorite restaurant or hangout in Ann Arbor?
Favorite restaurant is probably Black Pearl. Favorite hangout Sunday night, I'd have to go with the Jug, and then I'm a big Skeeps to Rick's guy. So I like if when we go back, being able to go grab a beer at Skeeps, do a walk through the quad, grab a beer at Rick's. Very good.
I mentioned we played Moose Ridge last summer in golf. I think you were with Travis and Stu. Was there a fourth in your group?
Yeah, Colton was in there.
So what's your handicap and how do you rank those players?
Yeah, I'm like between a 13 to a 14. So I've gotten better, but I've got a long way to go still. In terms of ranking us, I feel like when Travis is good, he's probably the best. I would say Stu, he just had the kid. So he used to be way better than me. I think I've caught him. So I think we're pretty comparable. The three of us are pretty close. Colton's a vibes guy. He was there for the vibes. I think he might have hit a putt or a chip or something, but I think it was the first time he'd ever golfed.
Well, Zack Novak, that was fascinating. You're a great interview. You're a Michigan legend, and I'm so glad we had a chance to spend this time. We'll see you at the reunion this summer, and it's always a lot of fun. I can't get over being a three-time captain. That's something that I don't think has ever happened, and nobody will break that record. So thank you very much, Zack. We appreciate it. And for all of our Go Blue Hoops podcast fans, stay tuned because we're going to break down the Michigan-Indiana game right now. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Zack.
Cool. Thanks for having me, Tim.
Go Blue.
Go Blue.
So here we go with the Indiana postgame recap. The Wolverines now 17-1. Really nothing surprising or super important to report. The Hoosiers are not good at all. They're a two-man team. They completely revamped their lineup. They have lost 4 straight now. They only scored 57 points against Iowa. They lack playmakers. I'm just not a good team. Michigan, though, a lot of substance, specifically some of the things that I like the most. Michigan shoots over 50% from the field. Again, that's almost a given. 40% from 3. That's always a good sign. I always worry about Michigan going cold, and every time I see them shoot over 40, it gives me confidence. They dominated the glass, plus 10 points in the paint. And from the very beginning, when everybody was trying their absolute hardest, Indiana could not get a shot off. Michigan's defense, their 2-point defense, was just stellar in this game. The things that I didn't like, Tucker DeVries is their best player. He had 0 points at halftime. He had 15 in the second. You've got to know who the man is, and it's an entire team effort. I thought that Michigan was complacent to end the first half. They were complacent to end the game. To only win by 14 points against a bad team, it just didn't seem indicative of all of the good things that the team had done. Other things I didn't like, Michigan missed 11 free throws. It really doesn't matter a whole lot against Indiana, but it does at Illinois, at Purdue, at Michigan State. They've got to find a way to make their free throws. Also, I thought that Yaxel was really interesting to me. He scored 15, grabbed 7 boards. That's great. I still sense that he's not healthy and that he's not completely confident. He missed some more layups, and you could see that he's getting frustrated with himself when he does miss these shots. I don't know how far he is from being 100%. The calf injury can be a little bit tricky, but the thing that I think is really important to note, some of those dunks he has in transition, I think he must be pretty darn close to being 100%. You don't make those plays if you're kind of half limping through the game too. So I think he's really close to 100%. Also, Elliot Cadeau has bounced back really well after his 0-point performance against Washington. He's had 36 points in the last 2 games. He plays with great pace. I like it when he's ultra aggressive. I think he is the best point guard that Michigan has had since, say, Xavier Simpson, and he's got the potential to even be better. Friday night, really excited about Michigan versus Ohio State. Trey Burke gets his uniform in the rafters, very, very much deserved, and it just looks pretty cool with Diane Dietz also having her number retired 10 days ago. Other storylines, really a great night for Dusty May to beat his alma mater. The timing was so perfect for Michigan. We are so lucky that he's our coach. Darren DeVries, really good coach. He's no Dusty May. And I'm sure that Dusty's been thinking about this for a long time, getting a chance to play this game against his alma mater. Also, look, Michigan scored 86 points in this game with ease. They probably played their B game once again. They only won by 14, which goes back to what I said earlier about complacency. They were good. They were not great, but 17-1 is special. And I feel like they've got a whole nother gear. Beat Ohio State, gain confidence, and then all of a sudden, the game of the year so far at Chrysler will be Nebraska on Tuesday, and I can't wait to keep following this team and see the potential that they have. So 17-1, I like. Thank you for joining the Go Blue Hoops podcast at Hale Media Group. We're having a ball doing this, and we hope that you'll subscribe and tell all of your friends about it. Go Blue.
If you like this kind of content, please like, share, follow, and subscribe. And as always, go blue.